Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of the Spanish Football Podcast. I'm Phil Kitromilides. I'm with Sid Lowe. Hello, Sydney.
Good morning, Philip.
You all right?
Yeah, I'm just there's sort of a lot has happened, but nothing's really happened. I'm in that Monday morning state where I don't really know what to do.
Or just sit here and talk about Spanish football with me.
There is that, and then hopefully that will help me. That will give me ideas.
Sydney doesn't know what to write for his column today, so let's see if speaking about Spanish football for the next half an hour or so can clarify some things for him. This is what happened on Matchday 12, the Friday night game. So Elche and Real Sociedad play out a 1-1 draw. Then on Saturday, Girona got a really, really needed win at home to Alaves. They beat them 1-0. Sevilla beating Osasuna by the same scoreline. Osasuna still really terrible away form and looking pretty bad under Alessio Disci this season. Atletico Madrid beating Levante by 3-1. Antoine Griezmann coming off the bench and scoring twice in that victory. And Villarreal winning away 2-0 at Espanyol. Gerard Moreno scoring against his former club for the first time. Then on Sunday, Nico Williams scored an absolute golazo. Terrific goal. If you haven't seen it, go and see it as Athletic Club beat Oviedo 1-0. Sorry, Sid. Rayo Vallecano and Real Madrid playing out a goalless draw. The first ever goalless draw between these two sides at Vallecas. Valencia and Real Betis finished 1-1 at Mestalla. Mallorca needed a win and they got it 1-0 at home to Getafe. Had Barcelona went to Vigo and beat Celta 4-2 in a pretty crazy game on Sunday night. More on that in just a second. Now, have you joined us over at patreon.com/TSFP yet? You really should. Patrons get the Monday pod and the preview pod advert free. Plus, they get a Q&A pod and a bonus pod every week. And there's the newsletter every single week for everyone. The Discord, the TSFP diary. Membership starts from just €4.75 a month, which is very, very little when you think about it. So come and join us. TSFP's at patreon.com/TSFP. Talking points, part 1, Sydney. We will start at Balaidos, where Celta and Barca played out a typically entertaining game. Robert Lewandowski scoring a hat-trick for Barca, his first hat-trick in over a year. There were 2 assists for Marcus Rashford as well, who is now the leading assist provider in La Liga with 7. What did you make of this game?
Do you know what? The best thing that happened for Barcelona was that in the second half, not very much happened. Yes. I thought that was in a way that for me, the kind of the analysis of this. So the first half was wild. It was very, very open. Celta seemed to find ways of going through Barcelona really quite easily, even though, I mean, it's difficult this because I suppose this feeds into everything that we talk about with Barcelona. That actually, if you look at the shot count, even at halftime, Barcelona were racking up far more opportunities than Celta, but Celta's were really clear. Because
they were 3-2 to Barca at halftime, by the way. If you didn't,
it was 3-2 to Barcelona at halftime, and I think at that point it was something like 17-4 in shots. And yet Celta were going through that line because Barcelona weren't getting the timing of it right, they weren't getting the pressure right. All of those things that we've talked about lots and lots of times. The game was really wild, really wet, pouring down with rain, really open, and loads of fun. And in the second half, I thought what was interesting about it was that Barcelona continued to press very, very high, but they did it through controlling. They didn't allow Celta to turn and play a pass. They didn't allow Celta out from deeper positions. They didn't allow them to ever break through them. And the second half, I thought, was a really, really quite impressive performance in terms of controlling the game, in terms of shifting. A game that's so wild to then become so different in the second half. And I thought what we saw was how do I put this? I was going to say 2 very good performances from Barcelona because the first half wasn't good, but it sort of was at the same time, if you see what I mean, in that they made a lot happen. But at the other end, they were those same recurring issues. And in the second half, as I say, what was most interesting to me was how they managed to fix those particular issues and to actually apply some control, which really and truly that hadn't been there in the first half. I mean, obviously, it was less fun. The first half was really, really enjoyable.
I mean, it was considerably less fun from a neutral perspective. I think Barcelona fans would probably have quite enjoyed seeing their side control a game. Once they got the 4th in the second half, things really did kind of calm down. I mean, shall we talk a little bit about individuals in this game and Bobby Lewandowski getting a I was going to say a much needed hat trick. It feels like it's come at a good time for him, with him not necessarily being first choice this season.
Yeah, and it's the first start since I think the Sevilla game when they got battered, and he wasn't fully fit then. After the game, Flick was talking about how that he's come back from injury different. He looks positive. He looks more kind of in tune with things. I think it's good for Barcelona that they felt that they could wait before starting him, that they weren't throwing him straight back in before he was fully ready. I think, and we've discussed this before, but I think that for all the doubts about Lewandowski, and I think those doubts are entirely legitimate, by the way. I'm not going to fall into the trap of him scoring a hat-trick yesterday. And I was reading it this morning in one of the Catalan papers. One of these classic pieces says, "Don't ever retire." Well, and in a couple of weeks' time, when he's terrible, you'll say, "Oh God, who is this guy? Can we please have another number 9?" But I do think that Lewandowski does things that Ferran Torres just doesn't. And there have been times when I myself have looked at it and thought, look how well Ferran Torres moves, look at what he does for the team, look at his kind of his sort of positional ability to come in from the side to create chances and to not always take them, because Ferran Torres' finishing is quite up and down. But I think Lewandowski gives you things, even in a game like this, where actually if you look at the statistics, he didn't give them very much. Like in that first half, I've got them in front of me, I think he only touched the ball 12 times.
Right.
But he scores goals. I think he does that thing that, that Spanish thing, or the Spanish phrase, which I'm not quite sure what would you call it in English, of fixing the centre backs, kind of putting them in a position which allows the two wide men to maybe have a little bit more space, which clears that space around the front of the penalty area as well. He also finishes very well. So what little he gets those. And the other thing that I don't think gets talked about enough, we've done it, but I feel like not many people do actually. And I'm not entirely sure why, is that ability that Lewandowski has to come and receive the ball, and by doing that, bring the two central defenders with him. And that opens the space behind. Now, the biggest beneficiary of that last year was Rafinha, and he's not available. So maybe we're seeing that less. But I think he's important from that point of view. And I thought it's obvious to say this, that he had a very good game when they win 3-0. But I think it's a little bit more than that. I think it's what it does for the players around him as well.
They won 4-2, not 3-0.
Sorry. 3-0.
Lamine, what do we think of Lamine? He scored.
What do we think of Lamine? I think we saw. I'd like to know actually if Claudio Giraldez had conceptualized it in these terms. I think we saw Celta double team him. I think we saw them put two men on him all the time. I think that did open space for others. And we're talking about Lewandowski fixing the central defenders. Lamine fixed kind of both sides of the left side of the pitch. Celta, obviously, they play with 5 at the back, although it's sort of 3+2 really. And normally the two wing backs get up and down a lot more. On this occasion, I thought they got up and down a lot less, partly because they were looking at Lamine. I thought he had a lot of the ball. It's very interesting, actually, that I think after Frenkie de Jong, I think he had more of the ball than anyone else. It wasn't always able to escape, but I think he becomes a focal point of a lot of what they do. And without it being an outstanding game from him, I thought it was a very good one.
Yes, I would go along with that as well. I mean, he's still in the build up to this. Hansi Flick said he's still not 100%.
No,
don't get carried away with what you saw in Bruges, because he's still not 100%. I don't know if we're reading something into that with him going away.
Yes,
on Spain duty.
Well,
I mean, just a message to the manager.
Just a slight tangent, but not a huge one. You go to the Athletic Club game, and Nico Williams scores a brilliant goal, and he's suffering from the same injury that Lamine Yamal is. And post game, Ernesto Valverde said, he was good today. It doesn't always show, but certainly it's a risk playing him 2 games in a row.
Yes.
And I thought that exactly what you were saying about Lamine. I thought that was a message to the national team. It's like, listen, don't you dare play him in both of these games. Please don't play him in both of these games. Right. And I think Barcelona feel that way. Now, look, Spain could qualify in the first game. And I think so. There's a good chance that then you can leave players out of the second game. I think Lamine Yamal, and actually it is true that the injury that he's got, it's one of those where it's not a kind of a continuous line. So it's not an improvement over time. And after a week, you're this much better. And after 10 days, this much better. And after 2 weeks, this much better. And after 3 or 4 weeks or whatever it may be, you can forget it. It's one of those that comes and goes. It's one of those that needs, I suppose one way of putting it is it's an injury that needs management rather than one that gets cured, if you see what I mean.
Nico Williams isn't in the Spain squad, is he?
Well, Ernesto Valverde, I haven't looked at Spain squad. Ernesto Valverde said he's Valverde actually said he's about to go with them. That is quite bizarre.
Is he?
Yeah.
Well, he wasn't initially, unless he's been called up and to replace someone who's dropped out.
Or unless Valverde is wrong. I mean, it's
Anyway.
perfectly plausible that he's wrong. I'm looking for the quote now because.
Anyway,
yeah.
We digress. Marcus Rashford, we've spoken about him previously on the podcast. We'll obviously have to speak about him again because I think he actually played pretty well in this game. Maybe his best performance for Barcelona with those 2 assists and constantly looking dangerous. He was involved in Lamine Yamal's goal as well. It wasn't an assist, but it was his ball into the box, which was partially cleared into Lamine's path. Is there still this feeling that his numbers are good, but his actual involvement in matches isn't as impressive as the numbers suggest? Or is that just a ridiculous notion because, hey, if he's providing assists and scoring some goals, then what more do you want him to do?
Yeah, and there was a feeling that this would be his last start because Rafinha will be back.
Yeah.
Well, not his last start. Obviously, look, he will play again. But what I mean is that he won't be a natural starter once Rafinha is back. And for what it's worth, I think that's understandable because I think they've missed Rafinha. And I think Rafinha is massively important. And there is a contradiction in there. I would largely share that analysis. And in fact, we've talked about that analysis ourselves, this idea that, it's not always great, but numerically you cannot argue with it. The thing that's made me, and this shouldn't make me change my mind, but I'm going to admit that it has. The thing that's made me not change my mind, but maybe change the balance of where I put this is reading everybody's sort of determination to do him down. Like I'm going through the Catalan papers this morning and reading, almost every one of them goes, Rashford, who really winds you up sometimes because he's doing nothing, provided 3 assists. Now, as you've said, it's actually statistically 2, but it's kind of a hat trick of assists. And I was thinking, what do you want from the guy? And so, at the risk of sort of defending someone because of some perceived slight, which really isn't a slight, it's just an analysis, but the repetitiveness of that analysis, and I think that you posed the question is quite right, because I think everyone is asking that. Everyone is looking at Rashford and thinking, I don't know if he's good, but Christ alive, those numbers.
I mean, those numbers are good, although he is
brilliant.
Good.
They are absolutely brilliant numbers. This is a guy that you got him on loan. You didn't pay anything for him. Actually, I don't know if there was a loan fee. I must confess, I don't know that. You've got 30. Now, I suppose part of it is hung on the fact that you've got a 30 million euro purchase clause,
which doesn't seem a lot.
Doesn't seem a lot from a Premier League point of view. Now, this maybe is the big question. At the heart of everything we're talking about, maybe what's really the crux of this issue is 30 million doesn't seem a lot if you're looking at it from Manchester United's point of view. 30 million for Barcelona actually does feel like quite a lot. One of the reasons they went for Rashford, and I this feels like it's sort of a dismissive thing to say, and perhaps it shouldn't, but it's true, is that they couldn't get Nico and that they couldn't get Luis Diaz. Now, that's not necessarily to say Rashford is third choice, but actually Rashford was third choice. But he's partly third choice because he's very cheap, because he's useful all across the front line, because in truth, it is true, Barcelona have been looking at him for a while. And Barcelona have liked the idea of this for a while. In fact, Rashford himself said, this isn't the first time I could have gone there. And so this doesn't mean that he's rubbish. It does mean that this was a solution to a problem that they couldn't quite fix with the players they really wanted to fix. Now, let's say this, by the way, it might not have worked with the other 2 players. Who knows? And so I do think that when you come into this and you think, well, 30 million, well, of course you sign him. With Barcelona's financial situation and with the potential for them to, how do we put this, in the summer, to be looking higher. If they are financially better off, I think their ambitions might be higher than Rashford. And so actually, despite everything, you should look at the numbers and say, well, absolutely you sign him. I don't think the answer is absolutely you sign him at all.
All right. Well, we'll see how he gets on. And he's played more minutes than we thought he was going to play already with the injuries to Rafinha and Lamine and Daniel.
More than any of the others. I was looking at this for this weekend's game. He played over 1,000 minutes across all competitions going into this weekend's game, which is more than any of the other forwards.
Yeah, it's quite a lot, isn't it? Quick word on Celta Vigo, the only team in the division yet to keep a clean sheet. They should be all right, shouldn't they?
Yeah, I mean, yes. But, I suppose if you keep on... Yeah, I mean, it depends what you mean by right. Look, if you're saying, will they get dragged into
getting relegated, yeah.
No,
that's what I mean.
Right. Into a relegation battle. I personally think they'll be top half of the table by the end.
Right. Okay, there we go. Okay, let's talk about Rayo nil, Real Madrid nil. There was already a really massive overreaction to the defeat at Anfield from the Madrid press. I was reading a piece in AS building up to this game, saying that there were a sea of doubts created and everything being questioned, not just the style of play, but Xabi Alonso's man management, etc., etc. Today, in AS, there is a piece from a very well-connected journalist who's now very high up in AS, and when he writes something, it is coming almost directly from the upper echelons of the Bernabeu. And the headline is that there is a worry for the unexpected drop-off in form from Real Madrid, and you can go and read it if you want, if you read Spanish, or maybe it's translated into English. But here's a line: they're not that worried about the play and the results, but that in the dressing room they don't fully understand what Xabi Alonso wants in certain moments. Back-to-back defeats, Sid. Back-to-back failing. No, not back-to-back defeats. Back-to-back failing to score against Liverpool and Rayo Vallecano. Two poor results, two poor performances, and already we're getting this with Real Madrid, clear at the top of the table.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to be a smart ass about it, but I was sort of thinking last night that we've reached the release the hounds moment far quicker than I thought we would.
Smithers.
Yeah, I mean, I thought, obviously, look, Anfield was disappointed, but I think it's a place where you can be beaten. That said, it was the nature of it. It was the fact that they overrun by a Liverpool team, and you tell me, Phil, you're watching far more Premier League football than I am, that isn't really very convincing this season. But against Real Madrid were. Against Rayo, they didn't play well. They didn't really create chances. I think Rayo are a difficult team to play. Bear in mind, Madrid haven't won there now in 4
They did create chances. They created 2 very good chances in the first half.
Madrid?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, 2 very good. The Asensio header and
the Vinicius spinning shot that saved.
Yeah, that's right. But they didn't create very much, considering over 90 minutes. It's not a huge amount. There's an Mbappe shot that flies quite a long way wide, and there's that dribble right at the very end. Varda Gula, when he gets quite close to goal, but then gets blocked just as he's coming in and about to make the shot. But not very much else. I think they haven't won there in 4 visits to Vallecas. The last time that Barcelona went, it finished 1-1, and Barcelona were 1-1 or 2-2? 1-1.
1-1.
And Barcelona were fortunate. I thought
Barcelona haven't won there in 3 seasons either.
Yeah, and then the last time Atletico Madrid went, it was 1-1, and they also struggled. So this is a place where it is going to be difficult to go, where Rayo don't allow you to play your way, where they create an intensity, which in theory shouldn't actually be enormously problematic for Real Madrid. Although I do think that Xabi Alonso is trying to turn them into a slightly different team. And maybe that's part of it. Maybe that's part of the players saying, well, we were so good running into space. We were so good into that. So why are we trying to be this kind of controlling side? I also think they don't actually have, we've talked about this a lot, the absence of a number 5, that position, that player that makes them play. They haven't been sparkling all season, but they've been well organised. And maybe actually that's part of it. Maybe that there is this sense amongst some of the players of, it was when it's wild and it's open, things happen. And when things happen, Madrid have the players for it. But the bottom line is, you said it yourself there, right? This is 2 games. It's 2 games, and everyone's losing. Although it is true that there aren't very many performances this year where you feel, oh, they were brilliant.
At this stage of the season, last year, Real Madrid were 6 points behind Barcelona in second place. They're currently 3 points clear of them at the top of the table, just for a little bit of context, comparing to last year. Yes, as you mentioned, it's a 4th consecutive year that Real Madrid have failed to pick up a victory in Vallecas. One of the papers referred to trips to Vallecas as not a headache for Xabi Alonso's predecessor, Carlo Ancelotti, but as a migraine for him, with those 3 consecutive matches that he never managed to win. Zinedine Zidane lost there as well in 2019. This is a place where Real Madrid have often struggled, and so proved the case. I'm just looking at some of the stats, Sid, and I was suggesting that Real Madrid did create chances. They created 1 Opta-defined big chance.
Which is presumably the Vinicius one, is it? Or do you think it's the Asensio one? Which of those 2 are they defining as big?
Which are they defining as big? Good question.
Asensio. Asensio, Al says.
Asensio. They had 5 shots on target. They had a fewer expected goals than Rayo in this game as well. So it wasn't a brilliant performance. Any individuals you want to talk about? Because it doesn't necessarily feel like it's I don't know. This felt more like a collective problem rather than an individual.
Yeah,
problem.
it felt collectively like it was a bit flat. Collectively, like they weren't getting to the ball that quickly. That Rayo tended to get there before them. That the use of the ball, the moving of the ball around the pitch was done a little bit. It was a bit plodding. And actually, the few moments when it accelerated tended to be when it went out to Vinicius. But actually, if you look at Vinicius, I know this is the nature of a winger, but I think he tried to take his man on. I was looking at the stats earlier. I think it was 10 times and only succeeded, I think, 3, maybe 4. Now, actually, that's quite a lot, I suppose you could argue, because you only need to do it a couple of times and maybe you'll win the game. And I suppose this takes us back to Marcus Rashford. 2 or 3 good balls into the box. There's your 3 assists or your 2 and a bit assists. And your job is done. But I do think that Madrid, it was kind of I suppose it's a bit, I mean, this maybe is one reason why you can analyse this and sort of say that things aren't great, because in some ways it wasn't enormously different from what we've seen quite a lot of this year. And it was sort of semi-well organised. The ball was moved around. Possession was sort of theirs. But it kind of wasn't very inspiring. And I think we've seen that a lot this year. We that phrase that I came up with and then decided to abandon because they then got absolutely battered by Atletico Madrid. But that idea of being boringly good, yes. it was kind of, they were better than the other team. They were imposing. Yeah.
Next up for them after the international break, they're away to Elche, Sid. That could be a problem.
That would be very interesting, actually. Because Elche took possession of Barcelona. Madrid will want possession. Elche will want it too. I wonder if Elche might be, I don't know. I suppose it's, because partly we look at Madrid and we allow ourselves to think of Madrid the way they've been over the years and the quality and the type of the players. And you think, oh, well, a team that brings the game to them, they can go beyond them. It's sort of not really what Madrid are trying to be. I suppose, again, we come back to that question of what Madrid are trying to be and whether the people who are there want to be that thing.
Yeah, it's true. Anyway, I will talk more about that game as it approaches, because we do have the international break. So a bit of time for Real Madrid to regroup. A bit of time for Rayo Vallecano to get their breaths back as well after that incredible game they played on Thursday night with the big comeback against Lech Poznan. And then this really intense, committed performance from them. Obviously, there is a massive pro-Rayo bias on this podcast anyway, but, they were pretty good. They were pretty good yesterday.
They are really good. And obviously
they just don't look like scoring that much. But apart from that.
No, and they actually played without a forward in this game, at least to start with. Played Issy nominally as the sort of false number 9, which actually I thought sort of worked. It didn't last very long because, of course, Pedro Diaz had that knee injury. Did you hear what was said post game about this? And no. It was quite frightening, I thought, because they said, we don't know the extent of the injury yet. He went off, he came back and sat on the bench with ice on his knee and was hobbling a lot and was talking to teammates. So I was like, well, I don't really know. But the reason the referee stopped play was because he heard it. He heard a crunch, which, doesn't sound good at all. Or he thought he heard a crunch. And one of the players, I can't remember which player, well, I think it was Alvaro Garcia post game. The referee, we don't actually know what's wrong, but the referee said he stopped it because he heard it.
Yeah, he was right there and did stop it pretty quickly. Let's hope Pedro Diaz isn't out for too long. All right, Sid, let's move on. Talk about the game that you and I were commentating on Saturday. Atletico Madrid beating Levante by 3-1. A game which Atletico Madrid started well. They took an early lead, but then Levante came back into it. Manu Sanchez completely unmarked, stunningly unmarked at the back post to level things up. But then Antoine Griezmann comes off the bench and 34 seconds later, with his first touch of the game, prods Atletico Madrid in front and then scores a second as well. And ultimately, it's a pretty good day at the office for Atletico. Yeah,
ultimately it is, and against a team that's been getting very good results over the years. In fact, correct me if I'm wrong, I think Simeone had never beaten them. I think that's right.
Right.
Well, bear in mind that Levante haven't been in the first. Oh no, that can't be right.
That's not right.
Sorry, hadn't beaten them in the last 4. Sorry, hadn't beaten them in the last 4 since they came back up. Since they came back up, hasn't beaten them. That's right.
They came back up this season. So
in which case, I'm talking total bollocks. Anyway, forget that stat.
Anyway, forget that stat. But they have been a tricky team. They had one on their last 2 visits to the Metropolitano.
I mean, on Saturday night, I could have told you these stats when we were all prepared and it was all there on my notebook. Now it's too many other games have happened since. I thought this was fundamentally a pretty good performance from Atletico Madrid. I think that the thing that would have concerned them, and we talked about this in commentary, didn't we? That once they conceded again, you think, oof. This does feel like an accident, and it does feel like something that we shouldn't overplay in the analysis because Atletico have been considerably the better side, far superior to Levante, much more of the ball, created a reasonable amount of chances without creating loads, but totally dominant. But then they concede, and you think, well, that shouldn't matter, except that this is happening again. Mm-hmm. And it happened too often early in the season. So at that point, it might have mattered. Now, what happened, of course, is that the change, as you say, Griezmann comes on. I think it was double change. It was him and Almada together, wasn't it? I think that came on. And he scores within 34 seconds. And I think that takes us back to something that happened last year during that really good run. One of the things that happened last year during that really good run was that Atletico made a lot of substitutions. And a lot of substitutions that had an impact. And partly because Simeone was making those substitutions early and giving those players time to make an impact. And also, the thing that I kept banging on about last year during that run was that it wasn't just he had good players on the bench, but he had different types of players on the bench. So he could bring players on and play in a different way. And I think what happened last year, and I wonder if this might be part of a process that will happen this year. It's not always that easy. It's sometimes a bit delicate. Is that last year, there was a point after the Betis game when they got beaten, that there was a kind of, if like, an acceptance that, look, just because you don't start doesn't mean you're not important. But the way to demonstrate that to players is when you come on, I'm going to give you 30 minutes to change the game. I'm not going to give you 3 minutes. You're not going to come on just as the board's going up saying there's 6 minutes added. You're not going to come on and play the rubbish minutes. You're going to come on and have a proper role. Now, that can be difficult because the guy going off is losing 30 minutes. The guy coming on, even if he's getting 30 minutes, still wanted 60 or 90. And so, but the quality of players is there. And when you've got a player like Griezmann, who has been everything for Atletico Madrid, accepting it helps. And I remember Simeone at the start of the season saying, I'm really emotional watching Koke because Koke accepts this new role. Except, of course, Koke's been so good that he's now started. Was that the 9th game in a row that he started, I think?
Yeah. Antoine Griezmann's been everything for Atletico Madrid except a league champion. So
yes.
Let's see if this year is the year. He finally breaks his duck. He's never won La Liga, Antoine Griezmann. Although, he's won the World Cup. So he's got
it's not a bad alternative, is it?
No, Atleti with more goals from substitutes than anyone else this season, and it points to what you were saying about the substitutes being given quality minutes to make an impact. It also points to the fact that they've got a really, really good squad. The strength in depth is extremely impressive. And let's see, they managed to cut the gap on Real Madrid this weekend, and they're not out of it. Remember, they were 10 points off top spot last season and managed to end the year at Christmas. They were top of the table as things stand. Of course, they are fourth, 6 points behind Real Madrid, but still very much in it. Behind the Villarreal side, who are third, and there was this discussion on the radio, do we think it would be amazing? Could Villarreal, could they challenge? Could they do what we saw at the start of the century with Deportivo La Coruña and Valencia winning the league title? Is there a chance that Villarreal do this? And I don't think,
no,
even as they were saying, even as the presenter of the radio was saying it, I think, he knew that there is no chance of Villarreal winning the league title, but they're up there. They're third. They bounced back from that absolutely shambolic, abysmal, catastrophic defeat in Cyprus with this pretty solid 2-0 win against Espanyol. And let's see, their objective is to finish in the top 4.
Yeah, a very, very Villarreal style win as well, wasn't it? Where it's, as you said, it's solid. It's taking the sting out of the game. It's having the athletes to go beyond people. It's having quality of players. That run from Buchanan. I can't remember who the fullback is that he goes past, actually. But
the fullback is Jose Salinas, who was starting his first ever game for Espanyol.
Right. So
Carlos Romero was not allowed to play against his parent club.
Of course. Well, I actually, for what it's worth, I don't want to go off on a rant about something that feels relatively minor, but I think that's wrong, and I think the league shouldn't allow it.
Why?
Because I think if you have a parent club, if you're allowed to play for someone else, you're allowed to play with all the consequences. We got our knickers in an enormous twist about the idea of adulterating the league by going to Miami. Is it not adulterating the league by a team having a player who can play against everyone except one club?
Yeah, but he's owned by that club. Is it not adulterating the league that an actual employee of one club playing against them?
Because we allow for loan signings. If you allow loan signings, it should be with all the consequences.
Apart from playing against your parent club.
No, I think it should include playing against your parent club. In fact, I think if you don't, as I say, because I think I'm exaggerating to make a point here, but what's the end game of allowing that situation? The end game is I'm a really big club. I buy everyone. I buy 100 players.
Mm-hmm.
I loan them all out, but you can't play against me. So not only am I the biggest club with all the best players, but I then, every time I play against anyone else, I debilitate them deliberately.
No, nobody does that.
Well, Villarreal have quite literally just won a game because of that policy.
Quite literally?
Now, well, okay, I've slightly exaggerated that point, but that goal, as you've just said, happens in part because of that.
Yeah.
Although Buchanan is incredibly quick and might have outrun Romero as well. But it's an amazing moment because he is about 7 yards behind when he starts playing. I just think, and for example, in UEFA competitions, you cannot prevent a lone player playing against you. I don't understand why La Liga allows it.
Oh, interesting tangent. Why not? Glad we went down it. Quickly, what happened in Bilbao, Sid? Nico Williams scored an unbelievable goal against Oviedo.
Brilliant. An absolutely brilliant goal. Goes through a couple of men and then turns away from another one, whacks it left-footed in off the bar, flies into the net. Brilliant goal. And then after that, not a lot happened in truth. Oviedo, a goal that was ruled out for offside, which would have been a hilariously bad goal anyway. Unai Simon lets it go for his leg. It's an incredibly tight offside. Oviedo didn't do a huge amount else, which is kind of what's happening at the moment.
And they're bottom of the table.
They're bottom of the table and the worst team in the league.
They are the worst team. I'm sorry, mate. They are the worst team in the league. They are.
No, they are. Yeah.
It's a shame. Only 7 goals scored in 12 matches, which is really quite poor from Oviedo. Let's see if they can get themselves back on track after the international break, Sydney. Hope springs.
Well, you say back on track, but that would suggest we were ever on the track in the first place. We've been in the sidings from the very start.
Yeah. Okay. That's true. In the Segunda, the leaders Racing lost 3-1 at Las Palmas, while Depor beat Cultural Leonesa 3-0. That means it's Racing on 25 points and Depor and Las Palmas chasing them down on 23 points. Then it's Almeria, whose game at Ceuta was abandoned after Ceuta fan sadly passed away in the stands. They're trying to rearrange that game for a couple of weeks. But Ceuta and Almeria was abandoned. There was also a goalless draw for Cadiz at home to Valladolid. Cadiz cannot score for love nor money, but there we go. That's just about it for this week's edition of the Spanish Football Podcast. Thanks for listening. Make sure you become a patron. Honestly, I don't think you will regret it. Thousands of people have been patrons over the years, and while it's true not all of them are still patrons, a lot of them are very satisfied with the service that is provided. So there we go. Come and join us. Patreon.com/TSFP. If you don't want to do that, make sure you're listening every week here on a Monday and on a Friday to the preview pod as well. And we'll keep you up to date with what's going on in Spanish football. Adios, amigos.
Cheerio.